Nothing's impossible. Well, right now I'm known as America's #1 success coach. I'm a trainer, a coach. I have a coaching company where we train people from 81 different countries by phone and by Skype. I am a trainer. We do trainings on breakthrough to success, on maximum self-confidence, building self-esteem, and achieving peak performance. And I also recently have started a Train the Trainer program where I'm training people all around the world to do this work. So far we've trained 500 people from 40 countries, and we now are coming online with I'm so excited about this, a home study program where you can actually download and watch all the exercises and get all the instructions to become a coach or a trainer, and to do experiential exercises for people. So people that can't come from Iran because they can't get a visa, or they can't come from France because it's too expensive, or they can't come from Somalia because it's really too expensive, they can now watch this online, and then they get certified by taking a test and also providing us with some videos. So our goal is 1 million people teaching this by the year 2030.
Wow.
So, yeah, we're going for it big time. I am. Yeah, we have 500 million books sold. Our goal is by 2020 for our books to have sold 1 billion. So we're halfway there. And what happened is in China a few years ago, they decided to take all of our Chicken Soup for the Soul books, put English on one side and Chinese on the other of the pages to teach the kids how to read English, and with stories that are interesting and exciting rather than the usual stuff that you learn in school. So I think we'll easily hit our goal of 1 billion by 2020. And everyone told us we were crazy. We told we wanted to do 1.5 million books in the first year and then 1 billion by 2020, and our publisher laughed at us. And now he has a private jet, so he's not laughing anymore. Well, the trick is everybody has limits in their thinking. They have limiting beliefs, they have fears, they have a lot of self-doubts, an inner critic that says you can't do it. And the truth is, pretty much anybody can do anything unless you have brain damage. But even recently, one of the things I'm excited about this new 10th anniversary book is all the stories in the first book, which came out in 2005, were famous people, you know, Olympic athletes and professional athletes and top movie stars and generals in the army, and people had heard of these people, like, you know, like Bill Gates, who started Microsoft. In this edition, we've replaced all those stories with people who read the first book and actually applied those principles, and now their lives are amazing. And one of them is from a guy named Forrest Willett, who was lying in bed in Canada, in Toronto, and he was in a car accident and he had a severe brain injury. And so he saw me on TV, and I said, "Come back in a minute, Jack Canfield will teach you how to get from where you are to where you want to be." He was in bed for 2 years, totally depressed, reading at the 3rd grade level. They told him he'd never read again, he'd never be able to earn a living again. And he got his wife to get the book. He couldn't read it was just too hard, but he had his wife read it to him, sometimes a page a day. And over the course of that year, he got out of bed, started being undepressed, got off all of his medication, started to take a tutor to teach him how to read. And now, 4 years later, he is a motivational speaker. He's helping people all over the world, you know, he said, if it's possible for me, it's possible for you. And literally, we've had people on, you know, homeless shelters, and their sister gave them the book, people in rehab centers who hadn't worked for years, a guy in China in prison for 2 years. His wife bribed a guard to give him a copy of my book. He came out, now he's a major real estate investor, started 2 restaurants, and is opening up a chain of restaurants all around the world. So I know that whatever your situation is, nothing's impossible. Well, they do the work. I always say the success principles work if you always work the success principles. So, you know, there was a guy over in Manila, and he captures the essence of what your question is. His name was John Caleb, and he interviewed me for a newspaper. And at the end of the interview, I said, "That's the best interview I've ever had. That was really good, John. How long have you been doing this?" He said, "You're my first interview." I said, "That's not possible." He said, "Yes, it is." Turns out he was bankrupt. His restaurant went out of business because he was fighting with his partners. He was couch surfing, meaning he was surfing people's couches because he didn't have enough money to pay rent. He had sold his car. I asked him how much money he had, $3.28. I gave him a $20 bill to buy dinner and get a cab home, and I gave him a copy of my book, which I had to buy from the bookstore where he was interviewing me. I said, "John, read everything in this book and do it, and your life will change." So I come back 2 years later to Manila. In walks John in gold Doc Martens shoes with this blue blazer with beautiful logo in gold on it. 9 guys behind him in polo shirts with the same logo. I said, "Are you the guy that interviewed me?" He said, "Yeah." I said, what happened? You look different." He said, "I am. I'm the #1 speaker in Manila. I have a house, a condo at the beach, 2 cars, a radio show, a TV show, a book coming out. And my seminars average between 800 and 1,000 people every time I do it. I made $1 million last year, and I'm on track to make $2 million this year." And I said, "What created that?" He said, "I looked at your life and you were successful. I was not. You looked healthy, you looked 15 years younger, you were a millionaire, multimillionaire, speaking all over the world. I said, I'm going to read that book and do everything in it for 1 year. Everything. I think he may be the only guy that ever did everything in that book. It's a thick book." And he said, "Because of that, I'm now successful." So it's the people who believe it's possible, who don't just read it for entertainment, but read it and say, okay, I'm going to do every exercise, I'm going to take every action step, I'm going to practice every practice. And success doesn't happen overnight. It took John 2 years to get there. The average person takes about, they say 10,000 hours to become an expert or a master. Now we know you can
Malcolm Gladwell, that's right.
Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell's books, and also there's a book called Talent is Overrated that he studied, that got his information from. And basically, that's about 7 years to become an expert neurosurgeon, a great actor, whatever. But we also know if you work with a master, you can get there faster. So if you have a master teacher in meditation, or a spiritual teacher, or a master coach, like some of these coaches that are coaching, tennis players like Rafael Nadal and people like that, you can achieve much faster. But I've known anybody can get from anywhere to wherever they want to go. It may take you a few years, you might have to learn new skills. Well, there's actually more than 5. It'd be like me saying you can keep your heart, your lungs, your eyes, or your kidney. Which one would you choose? You need them all because it's a system. So the first 21 principles in that book are a system. It takes you from taking 100% responsibility for your life, and we can delve all deeper into these if you want. Then you have to decide what is your purpose in life. Then you have to create a vision for the manifestation of that purpose. Most people don't know what their life purpose is. Then you have to set goals to make the purpose, break it down into measurable steps. You have to believe it's possible for you. Then you have to use affirmations and visualization to reprogram your subconscious mind so that it becomes a problem solver for you. The subconscious mind is like a computer, or like your GPS system in your car. You put a destination in, it will figure out how to get there. But you have to know how to put the destination in so your subconscious can really work on it, which requires visualization because we think in visual images, and also affirmations because we also think with words. Then you have to take action. You have to have an action plan. You have to take action. If you don't know what to do, find someone who's already done it. Because everything you want to do, with very few exceptions, someone has already done. And they've left clues in the form of books, trainings, seminars, webinars, franchise manuals, whatever it is. And then you take action, and then you have to respond to the feedback. Most people give up too soon, and they don't listen to the feedback. People are telling you, this is working, this is not working. There's positive feedback, there's negative feedback, there's external feedback. People don't come to your store, nobody invites you out to dinner. There's internal feedback, you have a headache at the end of every day telling you you're off course, what you're doing isn't fulfilling to you at some level, you need to change. And then we need to ask. Most people are afraid of rejection, so we need to reject rejection. Realize that if I asked you to have dinner with me tonight and you said no, people go, wow, thousands or millions of people saw him on TV and he got rejected. Well, I didn't have anyone to eat dinner with before I asked you. I don't have anyone to eat dinner with after I asked you. My life didn't get worse. So we have to reject rejection. Then we have to persevere in the face of all obstacles and failures. Chicken Soup for the Soul, which is what I'm mostly known for around the world, 500 million books sold in that series. We were rejected by 144 publishers. It took us 18 months to find someone to publish the book. Well, it's what I said earlier. You have to believe it's possible and never give up, persevere.
And how do you believe something is possible?
All beliefs are a choice.
Okay.
It's a choice. You either choose to believe or you choose not to. Most people are looking for external validation. Well, no one in my family ever went to college. I don't know anyone 21 who's a millionaire. I don't know any woman who ever became a Secretary of State, in our country. Hillary Clinton did. But, whatever. So we never had a black president before. So a lot of people thought Barack Obama couldn't be elected, but he said, no, I can. And he did. So the idea is you just choose to believe it, as opposed to choosing not to believe it. And you choose to believe the common norm of everyone or the feedback you're getting, or you choose to believe your own self. Yeah, well, all these feelings are created by thoughts. And some of the thoughts are conscious.
Yes.
Like, you know, my dad never worked in a factory, all my brothers work in a factory. What makes me think I could be a doctor or a movie star or whatever? And so there's those beliefs that are conscious, but there's also unconscious beliefs. Beliefs you made or decided or were told when you were a child, maybe you were 3 years old, 8 years old, whatever. You know, money doesn't grow on trees, girls can't be presidents, you know, whatever it is. You even forgot that you learned that. And then all of a sudden, through some of the exercises that I have in my book, you can surface those limiting beliefs. The reason your body responds negatively is your unconscious doesn't believe it yet. That's why it's so important to use affirmations and visualization. So an affirmation is a statement that something you want, you've already got it. So it could be, I'm so happy and proud that I'm now sitting on the balcony of my house on the Pacific coast of Malibu overlooking the sunset. So, and I don't have a house in Malibu, but I keep affirming that. Or I could affirm I have everything I need to do anything I want. Or I'm smart enough to accomplish any goal I have. Or I am, you know, the more I believe it, the more I achieve it. You know, whatever it is, you're repeating that. No, you just have to repeat it.
Okay.
In other words, we've been told certain things like, you're not smart, stay away from that, you'll never graduate, you know, you're going to end up in jail. Sometimes children have heard those things 1,000 times, maybe more. And so you have to overcome that. It's like pulling weeds out of a garden and replacing them with something positive. We have this thing called the law of replacement. You cannot get rid of something unless you replace it with something. If I say stop sitting there, there's no such thing as stopping sitting. You have to stand up. You have to do something different. And so the same is true with our thoughts and beliefs. And so using affirmations, you can also tap. There's this EFT tapping where you tap on these acupuncture points. And while you're thinking a negative,
do you use it
I
personally?
do, totally.
Okay.
I wrote a book about it called Tapping into Ultimate Success.
Okay.
And I worked with an EFT specialist to look at what is every negative belief that comes up when you go through the success principles. And now we have a tapping protocol for every negative belief. So literally, if you spend a month tapping on every limiting belief you have, like, you know, it only takes maybe 2 or 3 sessions to eliminate it. You can even get a list of 101 of the most common limiting beliefs. You can muscle test yourself to say, I totally and unconditionally love myself. If your arm goes weak, it means you don't. So now we can tap on, you know, I don't love myself, I don't love myself, I don't love myself, etc. And take that down to a 0, and then all of a sudden you muscle test again, your arm's strong. So I'm not smart enough, I don't know enough people, you know, I'm not worthy of success. There's all these limiting beliefs people have. We can tap those out. And I have a whole protocol of tapping in the new version of the book, the one that just came out, the 10th anniversary edition. So we have all the technology, David, we need to eliminate anything that's stopping us. But most people are not aware of it, or they hear about it, they think it's too simple, or they just think they don't want their friends to think they're weird. But the point is, anybody, I mean, I ran a workshop in Chennai, India, for 8,000 Herbalife distributors. And we tapped out tons of beliefs in those 3 days that we were together. It's one key. I'm always looking at how can we get there faster and easier. And more fun too, if possible. You know, I used to have people beating on chairs with like towels and screaming, I hate you, you know, to get rid of their negative emotions. And then I discovered something called the Sedona method, where you just close your eyes and experience it and say, could I let it go? Would I let it go? When? You say yes, and then it just disappears. Or you can use tapping. So things that used to take me an hour and a half with people now take 5 minutes. When I first began, I would take a weekend workshop almost every other weekend. There was one year I took 38 weekend workshops. The only ones I didn't take was New Year's, Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day. They weren't offering anything. So in the beginning, I just was soaking it all up as much as I could.
I knew that.
Today, you can watch TED Talks on the internet. You can go to YouTube and learn how to do tapping and, you know, all these things you want to learn. You can go to YouTube and probably watch 65 hours of Tony Robbins or 50 hours of me teaching this, you know, so you can learn a lot. And today I schedule about 5 or 6 workshops a year that I go to.
Okay.
Meditation retreats, new techniques like tapping and so forth. And then I also started an organization called the Transformational Leadership Council, which has 140 members from about 40 countries. And we get together twice a year for 4 days and we teach each other stuff. So a lot of us just don't have time to go to each other's full workshops, but we're quick learners because we already know a lot of the basics. So we might have a 3-hour session on a form of meditation or a 3-hour session on a new breakthrough technique for breaking through limiting beliefs or working with how to access your psychic powers or your intuition or so forth. So a lot of my learning occurs there and a lot of it occurs online. I've read over 3,000 books. I used to read a book a day. I took a speed reading class called photo reading, which I recommend to everybody. And then I began to realize I learned more when I took a workshop than I was in reading books. So I read a book a week now, so 52 new books a year. And just stay up, and I read a lot on the internet. Well, I just, at the beginning of the year, I schedule things I want to go to. And then if someone wants me to go to a party or run a workshop, I say no. It's like if my sister were getting married, I would not miss that. So my wife and I schedule our vacation time. Okay. I schedule my conferences I want to go to, and I also schedule the workshops based on all the things available. I look at what I want to do. And then, I have a balanced day. I get up every morning, I meditate, and I exercise, and I do a gratitude process, and I visualize my goals as already achieved. Then I eat breakfast, then I go to work. I spend 2 hours working on my #1 project before I look at any emails, and then I'll look at my emails. And then every day is a little different. Like today I'm doing media all day long, like with you and the radio. I get up around 8 o'clock. I go to bed late, so I don't start my day in the office till 10, and I probably work till 7:30 or 8, and then I come in with my wife until about 11 o'clock or midnight. And but today is mostly media. Another day I might be writing all day. Yesterday I spent the day rewriting a workbook for one of our workshops that we just finished, and I saw 10 ways to improve it. So I did that all day long and worked with my staff. So we're going to do another one in August, so all that's done now. I spend days writing. When I write a book, I usually kind of really jam it all in and just do like 16-hour days of writing.
Wow.
I can remember, like, I have to run my company.
You can stay 16 hours?
I can.
Wow.
I can. And my wife, everyone thinks I'm the Energizer bunny that never stops, those ever-ready battery ads. But I just have that energy. And I think it's partly because I don't have any resentment anymore in my life. I've forgiven everybody. I eat really healthy food. I cleanse occasionally, do fast and things. I'm doing the work I love to do.
Yes.
I think it was Thomas Edison who invented the light bulb, said when your vocation feels like a vacation, then you have made it. So I love what I do. It's often my wife has to go to bed, stop. But when I write a book, I might start like at 6 o'clock at night, and the next thing I know, I'm just doing it. And I start to hear birds singing, and I go, oh my God, it's morning. And I go to bed at 6 in the morning, get up at noon after 6 hours, and do it again. And I like to do things intensely. So when I'm in a training room, that's all I focus on for a week. If I'm traveling, doing workshops around the world, that's all I do. I don't answer emails or anything. And when I get home, I might just do 2 days of catching up. We have date night every week if I'm in town, Friday night. We used to have, Friday night used to be family night, but my youngest is 20, she just moved out, so that's over. And so we have date night. We do a lot of walks after dinner. We'll walk around this area. As you see, there's a lot of open spaces, and we'll go for maybe an hour-long walk. On the weekends, we'll walk on the beach. We schedule our days and times together.
Is it important for the balance to
yes,
know when
yes, and you have to sit down. Everybody's different. My wife's. I don't know if you've studied the 5 love languages. The idea that when you're giving someone, when you're trying to express love, some people want to hear words of affirmation. I love you. You're important. Some people want quality time. So with my wife, she's quality time. So I just listen. And I nod a lot and say, thank you, what else? And so we know that we have to do that at least 3 or 4 times a week or she doesn't feel loved. For me, I'm physical touch. If you don't touch me and nurture me and make love with me, and I don't feel like I'm loved. Some people are acts of service. You wash the dishes without being told. Some people are gifts. If I don't bring back, I have one person on my staff, if I go on a round the world trip and I don't bring her a gift, she thinks I don't love her. Here's the 5 love languages. Which one do you think you are? And they go, oh, I love gifts. Or you can do things like give them words of affirmation. If I tell my wife really cool stuff, she goes, yeah, whatever. You know? But if I do something for her, or if I listen to her, those are her 2 main love languages, she's happy. You know? So basically, also people kind of tell you, you know, they get upset if you don't give them a gift, or they'll say, if I could do anything for you, what would it be? Oh, take me out to dinner, you know, or help me with this project. So just ask. You know, I think that's a really important thing in relationships. How much time do you need a week for you to feel loved? You know, some people it's not much, other people it's like every day for 2 hours. Well, see, my wife, when we first got together, I was at a time where I had a lot of free time. And so she got spoiled, and she thought it was going to be like that forever. And then I started to have to go back to work and do a lot of travel, and she got very upset about it, quite frankly. And she realized, I helped her realize that she was looking to me for everything, for humor, for love, for contact, for communication. I said, you have to build in some friendships. You can't get it all from me. One of the big mistakes people make, especially women, is they want their man to be everything, you know? And so sometimes you have to have a couple best friends who provide listening, who provide talking about things that men don't want to talk about. You have to give your man, as John Gray says in Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, cave time. Like Monday night's my night. My wife can't ask me for anything. She can't tell me I shouldn't watch Monday Night Football. She can't say we should go somewhere. It's my night, and that's scheduled. So it's a rhythm. She can count on it. But I also have to do the things that we agree to on the nights that are her nights. And you know, for some people, they get up in the morning and they lie in bed for half an hour and snuggle and talk. And other people, they jump out of bed and run. So each person, you have to work out so that you're both getting your needs met. You're building a business. She wants more of your time. Okay, let's compromise. And lives go through stages, you know.
Yes.
When you start a business, you have to work your ass off. When the business becomes successful, you don't have to work so much. Now you get to travel around the world and have nice things and a big house and lots of time and can hire help and so forth. So you know that, and then when you have a baby, that's going to change everything, you know. Trust me. Well, basically, I've interviewed over 11 billionaires and lots of multimillionaires, and if they're not happy, it's usually that they're focusing all their energy on money and things and not on relationships. It's relationships that really make you happy. And I never met anyone on their deathbed said, I wish I'd work harder. They all say, I wish I'd spent more time with my children. I wish I'd spent more time with my wife and friends. And so it's a habit that gets established by these hard-charging type A, you know, billionaire people. And then they start to feel responsible. Many of them are competing. Who's got the biggest car? Who's got the biggest boat? Who's got the biggest company? Who's beating the other competitor? You know, and there's a lot of fun in competing and playing the game and keeping score and all that. But I think the secret to happiness is learning to meditate so that you're happy inside. A friend of mine wrote a book called Happy for No Reason.
Yes, I met her.
Marcy, yeah.
Yes.
So most people think that there has to be a reason out there. That made me happy. My kid graduated from college, and my son got his first job. I got my Porsche, you know, whatever. And when I went to Africa for the first time in Cameroon, we saw people that were living on $2 a day that were happier than my son, who was with me, who was, you know, going to private school, had everything you could possibly want. And he said to me, Dad, these people don't have T-shirts. I get upset when there's a spot on my T-shirt because he's very into fashion and all that. And it made him realize that external things don't make you happy. In fact, the more stuff you have, the more stuff you have to take care of and maintain and worry about it being stolen and all of that. So for me, meditation, because you learn to soothe yourself, calm yourself, learning to forgive everybody and not carry resentments and all that. To get out of fear. A lot of people live in fear of loss of their money, fear of loss of their reputation, fear of loss of face, you know, whatever. And I think to look at what are the things that make you happy. I'll give you an interesting example. I was up in Canada on a TV show. It was like Oprah with lots of audience people. And there's this one woman, we did Q&A with the audience. This woman said, you know, my husband died 7 years ago. I haven't been happy for 7 years. Now she thought she wasn't happy because her husband died. And certainly there's a period of grief, but it should last about 2 years, no longer than that. And then you get sad at their birthday and things like that. I said, well, what did you used to do 7 years ago that you're not doing anymore? She said, well, I used to paint, I used to play music on the piano. I used to go out with my friends, and gardening was another one. I said, do me a favor. For 1 month, I want you to excuse me. I want you to play the piano every day. I want you to paint every day. I want you to garden every day, and I want you to call a friend and spend time, and if you can, go out. She wrote me a letter about a month later saying, I'm happy again. Why? Because she was doing the things that made her happy. It was the fact she wasn't doing things that made her happy. We all have things we love to do, you know, and whether it's pet your cat or play the guitar or go shopping or who cares what it is. And I have people in my workshops make what I call my joy list, and they have to write down 20 things they love to do that make them happy. Sometimes people refer to it as the anti-depression list. So whenever you're not feeling happy, go to your list and do one of those things, you know. It's not that complicated. Well, I have three sons and a stepson and a stepdaughter. And when I was, my two oldest sons, they were not born into rich. I wasn't rich yet, okay? So, because one of them's 43 and the other one's 39, I think. And so that wasn't an issue at all. With my youngest son and with my stepchildren, they were born into this kind of a house, you know, with everything. However, whenever they wanted something that was beyond normal, like they wanted, like my stepson came, he said, I want to get a pilot's license. He was 16. He actually got his pilot's license before his driver's license. And I said, great, find out what it costs. And I'll pay for half, you'll pay for half. It was $2,000. I said, you got to go get a job. So he got a job in a boiler room selling newspaper, you know, subscriptions. And he was really good at it. And he made the money within a month. He had $1,000 because he was getting all these bonuses. And he went and learned how to be a pilot. And now when he wanted to fly, it was like, you know, $200 an hour. I said, great, you get the first 100, I'll get the next 100. Or I could have said, it's up to you. You want a car, go buy one, you know. And I always matched them. I wanted them to know I supported them, but he wanted a BMW for graduation. I said, find out what one costs. I'll pay for half of it, you pay for the other half. So if you do those kind of things, you don't just spoil them and give them everything. Certainly they're going to go on better vacations than most kids go on because you're going to take them with you to nice places. And that's good. It makes them global citizens. By the time my kids were 18, they had been to Africa and France and Italy and Mexico and so forth. They feel comfortable everywhere in the world. That's a gift. That's very nice. But like my son who's graduating college this year, we've been paying for his room and board and all that. It's called That Ends. As soon as you graduate, you've got to go out and get a job. Well, I think early on, you know, I had a Latin teacher in college who said, you should go to Harvard. And I thought, I'm not going to get into Harvard, you kidding me? But I did. She made me apply and I raised my self-esteem. Wow, I'm smarter than I think I am. And then I had a guy in Chicago named W. Clement Stone. He was a self-made, worth $600 million, a friend of Napoleon Hill who wrote Think and Grow Rich. And I ended up taking a workshop with him once, and then he basically said, I want you to come work for me. Because I'd been teaching high school in the inner city, all black kids, and they didn't have anyone that was in that area. They were all working with white kids in the suburbs. So I went and worked for him, and he taught me, I bet say about a fourth of what's in my book, I learned from him. About how to be positive and set goals and expect the best and use affirmations and act now, do it now.
How old were you at this moment?
I was probably 23.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was a change for me. And then there was a guy named Jesse.
I am 25.
Yeah. Oh, there you go, see? It was Jesse Jackson, who's a civil rights leader in America, worked with Martin Luther King. He turned me on to social consciousness and being social justice and the civil rights movement. And so I was very involved in that for a while. And then I started, I worked for a guy who had a training company. And then he said, I think it's time for you to go out on your own, you know? And I was like, wow, I was a little scared. But he said, you know, take it to the next level. So I've had people that have encouraged me along the way. Sometimes you just have a meditation and you just get, I need to do the next thing, like write the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. That came in a meditation. Starting the Transformational Leadership Council, which is, I love this organization. That came in a meditation. I need to be connecting with other people. I was scared. I was, why would people want to join me? You know, like even as successful as I was, I still had those self-doubts. But I always say, even though you have a doubt, do it anyway. You know, do it scared. Don't be afraid of being afraid. So I invited 30 people. We sat in this room with a row of chairs behind this couch about 10 years ago, and we started the organization. 30 people, and they all joined, and so it's there's been these just moments where I just got this inspiration to do the next thing, and each time usually a little fear comes up, but as I teach people, you can tap the fear out and don't let it run you, and the fear is an illusion, basically. We imagine bad things. We imagine bad things are going to happen. People will reject me, it won't work, I'll lose my money. And you can use that same function of imagination, create the positive picture. So now pretty much everything that comes up, I just say, it's going to work, let's do it. Well, Mark really attracted me. I wasn't planning to have a partner. And we had breakfast one morning. We'd known each other for a number of years. And he asked me what I was working on. I said, this book. He said, I want to do it with you. And I said, that's like asking a great novelist who's written half of a book to let you finish it with him. Why should I do that? He said, because I'm really good at marketing and sales. I have a lot of stories that you don't know about that I think would be good in the book. I had 70. He said, I could get 30 more. And he did. And we had our challenges. There were times when I felt like he wasn't pulling his weight. There were times when he probably felt I was pushing him too hard. We're very different in personalities. He's very expansive and kind of hyperbole. I'm much more calm and slow-natured and detail-oriented. But it was a great marriage because I'm the one who primarily edited the books. He was the one that primarily went out there and got everyone excited about him because he's got this great, bombastic personality. So it was a match made in heaven. I always tell people, you don't want to surround yourself with people exactly like you because then you're missing functions that you don't have. So, it's like a marriage. You have to really kind of date a while and before you commit to a 50-50 partnership, but it worked out really well. And a couple times things got a little dicey. We would just have a friend who's a mediator or a coach come in and help us talk it through, and 3 hours later we were fine and just kept going. Well, Mark's kind of ADD, all over the place, and doesn't concentrate very well.
Okay.
And so if you're really trying to get something done that was frustrating, he'd like to tell a joke every 10 minutes or get up and walk around. And Mark, we're trying to focus, So eventually we said, look, don't come to those meetings, come to the marketing meetings and the sales meetings. So we learned how to use the best of each other and not, make each other wrong for it. I remember there's a woman named Byron Katie who teaches this work.
Yeah, I love what she's doing.
Yeah, so do I. And the first time I was introduced to it, someone gave me a cassette tape to listen to in my car. I was driving from LA up to Santa Barbara, and I was kind of mad at Mark that day for something. He did something where Mark would always give people, if you asked him for a testimonial quote for your book, he wouldn't even read it. He'd just say, write good stuff about it. And someone had written a book on sex toys and asked Mark if he would give a testimonial. And he said, this book is like chicken soup for the body or something like that. And it was really inappropriate for our brand because our brand is very much, you can read any book to your children. There's nothing, risque about it. And I think that was like, Mark showing up in a thong or something. It just wasn't right, So I was a little bit upset with him. We got him to rescind the testimonial. It all worked out. But I'm driving home and I'm listening to Byron Katie say, what's your belief about how this person should be? And I said, well, he should never do that, and he should show up on time, and he shouldn't over-exaggerate things, and yada, yada, yada. And then she said, can you know that's true? And I said, well, really? I don't know. Can you really know it's true? No. Who would you be? Who are you when you think that? I feel angry. Who would you be without that belief? Well, I'm relaxed and calm. So I let it go. I went through about 3 of those little repetitions, and then it was like, well, I need to be more outrageous. I need to be, you have to own the turnaround statement. So that was very helpful to let my beliefs about how he should be and start relating to him how he was and really appreciate what he brought to the table and not resent him for what he didn't bring to the table, because no one can bring everything to a relationship. Well, we had determined early on we were going to be a 50-50 partnership.
Okay.
And partly how that scaled out was Mark's wife, Patty, at the time. She ended up taking over all the legal work and doing all the contracts and protecting us when, people would violate our trademark and all of that. and also the licensing, because we license out the name eventually to dog food, cat food, all kinds of foods, and t-shirts and clothing lines and all that. So she handled all of that. So between the two of them, they really held their position in terms of a 50-50. Without Patty, it might not have been so fair. On our side, we took all the responsibility for the editing and the production of the books and soliciting for stories and all of that. So they were kind of a little more the business side, we were more the production side, and that's how it made it fair. Well, actually, Chicken Soup for the Soul was a publisher of Health Communications.
Okay.
So after 144 rejections, we would have published it ourselves, self-published if we had to, because we wanted the book out there. But I didn't really want to be a publisher. I didn't want to have to deal with warehousing and distributing and printing books and all that. I really wanted to be a teacher and a trainer and a coach. So basically, that's why I work with a publisher. Now, we make less money because we get maybe $2 a book as opposed to, $10 a book. But I'm not complaining. We did very, very well that way. Well, in America, you have to really build up a reputation. So in this day and age, you have to make sure you've got a lot of stuff on the internet. You're easy to find, and you've got to be stuff in English as well as French. Build up your social media campaigns, so you're constantly doing video blogs and constantly putting out free material. People start in America, they want something free to start with. And then you can start charging people for things, and then you can kind of move them through the funnel from a book to a training that they buy and listen to at home, and then they maybe come to a $1,000 weekend workshop, and then eventually maybe a $20,000 boot camp that you put on. And the other thing I would say is just never give up, just keep on keeping on. And when you start here, there's so much competition, but you have a great personality, you're attractive, you're someone that believes in things. And the thing that's interesting about America, people with an accent always do better than people that don't have one. So all the people I know, like the National Speakers Association, that have been presidents, have either had an English accent, a Lebanese accent, a Southern accent, so it makes you more interesting to people, Okay. So I would definitely take advantage of that, but probably start a YouTube channel and get a lot of stuff on YouTube would be another important thing to do. Never, ever, ever give up. Chicken Soup for the Soul was rejected by 144 publishers. 144 publishers said, we don't want to publish a collection of short stories. The title's stupid, Chicken Soup for the Soul, what does that mean? People don't buy collections of short stories. There's never been, successful chain of doing that. So literally, we spent 14 months trying to find a publisher. And we'd go to New York with our agent, and eventually our agent gave us the book back and said, I can't sell this. So we went to the National Booksellers Association convention down in Anaheim. We went from booth to booth to booth for 3 days. And there were 4,000 publishers represented there. And we go, would you publish our book? Would you publish our book? Would you publish our book? And we got no, 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 no. It was late on the third day that a little publisher from Florida, after we'd gotten over 144 rejections, said, we'll read it. And then they said, we said, well, how many copies do you think we'll sell? After they said, yeah, we'll buy it. A couple weeks later, they said, we'll publish it. And they said, well, maybe 20,000 if we're lucky. And we said, our goal is to sell 1.5 million in a year and a half. Now, have you ever told someone your dream and had them laugh out loud at you? He laughed out loud. Now, if we had given up after 100 publishers had said no, I wouldn't be standing here today. Wouldn't have happened. And so you've got to be willing to persevere. Because we didn't take no. See, when the world says no, you say next. Let's practice that. If I say no, you say? Yes. Absolutely. There's only 5 or 6 billion people out there you can go and ask, right? There's over 4,000 publishers just here in the state of California. So what we have is this endless possibility, but you have to persevere. It's as if the universe tests our commitment. And so today we have 147 titles in print. We sold over 115 million copies. We're in 47 languages. And over $1 billion worth of Chicken Soup for the Soul books have been sold worldwide. So if you're willing to decide what you want, believe it's possible, consciously envision the future, feel the feelings of what it would feel like if you had achieved this goal, you can have anything, and then you take action, both obvious actions and inspired actions. You can do anything. One of the functions of belief is taking action. We did a survey of about 2,000 top entrepreneurs, and we noticed that one of the things that people who win in that world have is a bias for action. If they have an inspiration, they act on it. I mean, how many of you have ever had a great idea, talked about it, thought about it, didn't do it, and then someone else did it and was successful, and you went, darn, I should have done that. Maybe it was buy that piece of property. You know, all that, we all have that piece of property we wish we'd bought, you know. Anyway, so we're going to be looking at the idea that taking action is part of law of attraction. See, a lot of people think you can just sit in your room, meditate, visualize having the perfect car, the perfect house, the perfect relationship, and then it'll kind of just come to you. And I always say, unless you live at the bottom of a hill where there's a road, it's probably not going to be a Cadillac show up in your living room, right? So think about this. The last 6 letters of the word attraction spell what? A-C-T-I-O-N, action. Now, there's 2 kinds of actions that are critical. There's obvious actions. If you want a certain kind of car, you should go down and test drive it. You should find out how much it costs. You should see what it costs to maintain it. You should go, you know, I like to test drive a car 3 or 4 times, go down to the dealer, take a camera, stick my head out the window, say, take a picture of me, I'll be back to buy it. Right, you know, put it up on my refrigerator, look at it every day. Eventually, you know, those kind of things produce car, right? Saving for it and so forth. But there are also things called inspired actions. All of a sudden, you get an inspiration to do something, and you didn't know what it was. You don't have a sense of, like, how is this rationally going to make sense for me to move forward in my life? I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, Dr. Ignatius Piazza, graduates chiropractic school. He wants to move to Monterey, near Pebble Beach, where the golf course is. And he gets there and he says to the local chiropractic association, I'd like to join you, I'd like you to help me get my practice started. And they said, we don't need any more chiropractors. We have 1 chiropractor for every 8 people in this area. It's too many. Now, he could have said, okay, let the external reality control his internal experience, but he didn't do that. He said, I'm going to think about this and visualize it and believe in it, and something will come that I will do. And what came to him to do was to take 6 months before he opened his office and put a pin where he wanted his office, and then concentric circles knock on every door in every neighborhood saying, hi, I'm a new doctor in town, could I ask you a few questions? You know, I'm starting this practice, should I open from 5 till 9 in the morning, or should I be open from 5 until 9 at night for people who have 9 to 5 jobs, which would be better? Should I advertise in this paper or that paper? Should I call it Ignatius Piazza Chiropractic or Chiropractic West? Then his last question was, if I have an open house, would you like to receive an invitation? They said yes, he wrote it down. Now, over 6 months, he knocked on 12,500 doors, talked to 6,500 people, and gathered over 4,000 names of people who said, yes, I'd like an invitation to your open house. Now, when he opened his office 6 months later in a town that did not need another chiropractor, according to the professionals, his first month in practice, he netted $72,000. In his first year in practice, his gross income was over $1 million. I was giving a talk and mentioned this story just about 5 years ago, and this happened about 25 years ago. Someone said, he knocked on my door. And he left his card. And 2 years later, I needed the chiropractor, and I called him. Because we work with people we know, we've had an experience with, right? So he trusted his intuition. He took action on it. Other people would say, oh, guess I can't have what I want. You got to be willing to take the action. If you're going to be successful in creating the life of your dreams, you have to believe that you are capable of making it happen. You have to believe that you have the right stuff and that you're able to pull it off. Now, whether you call it self-esteem, self-confidence, or self-assurance, it's a deep-seated belief that you have what it takes, the abilities, the inner resources, the talents, and the skills to create your desired results. Now, believing in yourself is simply an attitude. Believing in yourself is a choice. You have to choose to believe that you can do anything you set your mind to, anything at all, because, in fact, you can. It might help you to know that the latest brain research now indicates with enough positive self-talk and positive visualization, combined with proper training, coaching, and practice, anyone can learn to do almost anything. Now, I've interviewed thousands of successful people, and almost every one of them has told me, I was not the most gifted or the most talented person in my field, but I chose to believe that anything was possible. And because of that, I studied, I practiced, and I worked harder than the others, and that's how I got to where I am. You know, if Ruben Gonzalez, a 20-year-old living in Texas, hot Texas, can take up the luge, which is a winter sport, and become an Olympic athlete, if Bill Gates, who was a college dropout, can become a multi-billionaire, And Stephen J. Cannell, who was a dyslexic student who failed 3 grades in school, can become a best-selling author and a television producer, then you too can accomplish anything if you'll simply believe it's possible. So make the decision right now to believe that you create all of your experiences, because you do. Let's start creating the ones you want by believing you can. Sounds a little strange, but accepting this level of responsibility is uniquely and inevitably empowering. It means you can do, change, and become anything at all. Just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean the world isn't out to get me. Now that may be a joke, but many people believe the deck is stacked against them. People who are reverse paranoids, otherwise known as optimists, use the same consistent thinking, but they believe that the world is plotting to do them good. Everything that happens is pushing them in the right direction. This attitude breeds more good thoughts, so why not practice to become a reverse paranoid? Start seeing obstacles as opportunities to grow and change. When your presentation doesn't get the sale, see it as an opportunity to create a better presentation and become better at your job. See the task that gives you some power to change rather than the failure that makes you feel powerless. Look for the seed of something better when everything is going wrong. Almost everyone sees getting laid off as a bad thing. But even if you want your job to be over, the end always feels sad and uninspiring. The end of one job, however, always holds the promise of the new beginning of the next job. If you look at it that way, you're focusing on what a reverse paranoid thinks about. Identify the great benefit in every event. Soon you'll start to see that good is not an accident, but something you create with your attitudes. Walk through your home, your business, your apartment, your condo, anything you're in charge of, and make a list of all the things that aren't exactly the way you want it. There's never a stapler by the Xerox machine. Someone always leaves that cabinet open. My kid never picks up after himself. Those pictures are always slanted. They never stay straight. The screen door slams. There's a hole in the window. You know, whatever it is, write it down. And then go back, and here's the key part. Remember, in Law of Attraction, we always focus on what you want, not what you don't want. You don't want to be going, I don't want a man who smokes. I don't want a man who watches TV all weekend. I don't want a man who, because that's what you're going to get. All right, because what you focus on is what you attract. So you want to focus on the opposite. So what you want to focus on is the opposite of your irritation list. There'll always be a stapler by the Xerox machine. We solved it in our office with a little chain and some glue. It doesn't leave, okay? But the key is there's always solutions. The pictures that won't stay straight, Velcro, right to the wall, on the bottom. It works, you know. But the point is, you want to get a list of what's the outcome you want, and then take a day, hire a person, or bring a friend over, and go through the list and get as many done as you can. You know, all the easy ones. Build some momentum. Clean the garage. Develop a new filing system. That might be something you set off to another weekend. And we say all the big ones that are really big. Do one a quarter. Every 3 months, solve one of those. Now you're getting rid of all the stuff in your life. And why is this so important? We're talking mostly about being wealthy, having great relationships, great health, world peace, ending hunger, and you're talking about the screen door. When you don't fix the screen door, you settle. And when you settle consistently, you develop a habit of settling for what you don't want. You know, one of the greatest myths that's pervasive in our culture today is that you're entitled to a great life and that somehow, somewhere, someone is responsible for filling our lives with continual happiness and exciting career options, a nurturing family, and blissful personal relationships simply because we exist. But the real truth is that there's only one person responsible for the quality of your life, and that person is you. You see, everything about you is a result of your doing or not doing. Your income, your debt, your relationships, your health, your fitness level, your attitudes and behaviors, everything. That person you see when you look in the mirror is the chief architect in your life. You know, I think everybody knows this in their heart of hearts, but the mind can play games, tricking us into thinking that there are external factors that are the source of our failures, our disappointments, and our unhappiness. But the truth of the matter is that external factors don't determine how you live. You, and only you, are in complete control of the quality of your life experience. Successful people take full responsibility for the thoughts they think, the images they visualize, and the actions they take. They don't waste their time and energy on blaming and complaining. They evaluate their experiences and decide if they need to change them or not. They face the uncomfortable and they take risks in order to create the life that they want to live. Here's what I've learned about complaining. In order to complain, I have to have a reference point of something better that I want that I'm not willing to risk creating. Now let me explain that again. I have to have a reference point in my mind of something I want that's better than what I have that I'm not willing to risk creating, so what I do is complain about it instead. See, if I was complaining about my wife, it would mean that I would have to believe that somewhere out there in the world there's a better woman than my wife. See, if every woman on the planet died, except my wife, do you think I'd go to work the next day and complain about her? No, she's the only one. And I'd be going, hey, and I got her. This is really cool, right? Do you ever hear anyone complain about gravity? Very rarely. You know, gravity makes us all bend over. Do you ever see an old person walking down the street going, gravity? They have a little walker. I hate gravity. If it weren't for gravity, I wouldn't be all bent over like this. Gravity sucks. Now, have you ever heard an older person doing it? No, the reason they don't complain about gravity is because there's no alternative to it. You know, gravity just is. So if someone's complaining about something, it means they know there's something they can do about it, because we don't complain about the things we can't change. So as soon as you hear yourself complaining, I want you to stop and say, okay, what would I rather have? Remember, law of attraction always says focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Because when you're talking about what you don't want, when you're complaining and blaming, you're focusing on that which you don't want, and you're accelerating its expression out into the universe with those negative feelings. And yet we'll spend a majority of our time complaining about so many things. And usually we complain about them to people who can't do anything about it. Make a list of 101 things you want to achieve before you die. Now, I was sharing this with someone last night, and they said, God, that just seems like a really big task. I'm a single mom. I don't have any time. When am I going to do that? We know that one of the things about high achievers is they all have goals. Only 10% of Americans set goals every year. 10%. I can go to sales conferences, people that learn this stuff, hear it over and over. How many? 10%. We also know the same 3 to 10% control 90% of the resources of the world. So literally, without goals, you're directionless. You will be used. See, people without goals get used by other people who have them. People that don't have goals work for people who do. And so you want to be someone who picks up and gets clear about what you want. Make a list, 101 goals. I want to go to Paris. I want to, skydive. I want to bungee cord jump. I want to play the guitar. I want to learn to juggle. I want to learn 2 magic tricks for the kids. I want to go to the Olympics in Beijing. Whatever it is, make the list. And you'll see there's a lot of stuff under there that you've kind of put down that you want. And you can have anything you want. Does it make your heart sing? The number one feedback system that you were given at birth is joy. If you're not experiencing joy as you think about doing something and as you pursue doing it, then it's off course for you. You also want to put your rational mind to work. You want to do some due diligence. Ask other people who've gone down that road before. What was it like? What did they have to do? What were some of the costs of that path? What were some of the payoffs and the benefits? And really get a sense of what it would be like to do that. Sometimes you can go and do an internship, or you can work for a friend in their restaurant just to see if you like it, because often the fantasy doesn't match the reality. And the other thing is to simply trust yourself. You know deep inside what's true for you. And if you'll take a few minutes and go inside, we call it meditation, and just ask and sit with the question and see what kind of feelings come up. Does this feel right? So do all the rational research, but then ultimately bring it back into your heart and decide, does this feel good for me? And if it makes sense up here and it feels good, then step into it. Just lean into it and see what happens. Pursue it. No decision is forever. You can always change if it's not what you want.